He sent me one from, I've been getting pictures, and then I'm following Karen's blog. I don't know how they have time to write she has time to write all, she must be up all night in a stateroom doing her typing of everything. Anyway, he sent me, because he knew I went to Europe in '65 when I was between my junior and senior year, and I studied over at Cambridge for 3 weeks with a bunch of other kids. Anyway, they took us in a bus one time, and they took us out to where Switzerland is in this corner, Italy's here, and you could stand with 1 foot in each place. And they said, and here's the restrooms over here. It's a long building, right? And the boys go in one, and the girls go in the other. Went in that door, the whole inside is open. The boys and girls are in the same place doing their business.
It's crazy.
Well, it fascinated me with the toilet tissue there. It was like wax paper. You know how you get a paper towel out?
Oh gosh,
and so everywhere I went in Europe, I saved that. Got home, I had to write a term paper. I wrote it about the bathrooms in Europe, how disgusting they were, and the
We
toilet
purchased
tissue.
4 grapes here.
Okay.
We've already sold 2.
Anyway,
That is crazy.
I flunked. I got an F on it. Anyway, so I told Steve that story. So he sent me this great big picture of the bathroom in Hong Kong. It's a little thing like a closet, all tile, pretty red and white tile, has these 2 things you hang on to, and you just squatter with this little hole. And he thought, I looked at that, and he goes, do you know what this, oh yes, I know what that is. You know.
Well, I remember when I was over in I guess I was in Paris, I think, and I had to use the restroom, and they have the restrooms out and open, so.
And you see everybody's feet.
Yes, and you're standing up there looking at everybody. Everyone knows what you're doing.
Yeah, it's just from here to here. Yeah.
And the women, of course, they're okay. They get to go. The women and men use the same one, but the women actually had little doors they could shut. Partitions they could shut. But it was just so hard for me. It took me 5 minutes to go because I was so alarmed by everything.
I couldn't go.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's a wonder I didn't have kidney stones by the time I got home. You know.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, you're the only board member. You're in charge.
All right, we'll call things to order for sure. It is 9:04. Roll call. We have. We're all here, I guess, right? Except we're missing Xavier. Xavier is out, so, and we have no other board members. I thought for sure someone else would show up here,
Yeah, no.
but okay.
Not since Lindy.
They're
yelled
staying
at her.
down.
Yeah, right. And recognition of visitors. We got our one little visitor out there, you know.
She's not paying attention.
Yeah, I know.
She's looking
But
at
she's
the phone.
good. Should we?
She's my Uber driver.
I'm putting a smiling face on my
Okay,
deal
she's
for
my
her.
Uber driver today.
And public comments. Do we have any public comments this morning?
No? Okay.
Good. All right. Open session, audit reports, items of interest, and general business. 5.1 is approval of February 22nd, 2023 minutes.
Okay, I have a couple changes.
Okay.
It's the very first one, it's an audit meeting, not a audit meeting. Then you go down to 2.1, you need to have a period. I'm picky, I'm the grammar Nazi here.
I do have a question. Steve was the one who did these, audit the minutes, I guess for the committee and stuff. And so, is there somebody else that wants to do?
I can do it, it's no big thing.
Yeah, cause Lydia doesn't have a lot of time.
That's okay.
So, if you're able to do that, would be great, cause then that would eliminate a lot of this
Well,
problem.
and I used to, he would send them to me and I'd look at them first and then send them
Yeah,
back to him, so.
There we go. Let's
Anyway,
see.
I'll just give you this page
Yep.
of changes. Let's see. Anyway, 2.1 needs a period behind minutes because you have one on 2.2, so you need consistency.
Yeah.
Bernardo discussed the payment vouchers, PBQ request from Tulare County. We're added the wrong fund. Shouldn't that be account number?
No, it was a fund number.
It is a fund number? You
Yeah,
don't
'cause
call them
it's-
account numbers? Okay.
No, it's like that 806, said no,
Okay.
funds.
All right. And the 2.4, it should be suggested. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So that's the only changes I have, and I move that since it's just us,
Yep.
I move that we accept them as corrected.
All right, I second that, and, all right, then, I guess we have to vote on it, I guess, on this? Okay, so, all right, so we have a first and a second, and all, nobody wants to approve the minutes?
Just I,
Aye.
yeah,
Uh,
that's us. We're it.
all right, so we're approved at 2-0.
Uh-huh.
Okay, 5.2 is approval of January 2023 financials. All right.
You do remember that I asked that we be a month behind on these because the county's so lax in getting them to us?
Yeah,
Okay. Charlie didn't remember that.
well, we don't have a lot of choice.
Okay, I'm gonna get it at the end of January.
Get that if you need to. We're not so formal.
Hey, Dean.
And we're also trying to go on YouTube too. So for anybody who's listening, I guess you can link into them, so then eventually when we try to do those, live telecast ones or something where they can interact, they can get on there. But we need to have so many viewers in order for it to happen, like 50 or something.
No, I
They
don't.
don't, but they have to buy a subscription,
We
right?
need to probably cover those up. I
That we
wonder
see
if
half 50 viewers or something.
we don't
This
have
is
a
the start.
computer and then to cover those
And then
up.
once we go into that,
I don't know.
that other part where they can interact.
Like a Zoom meeting.
Right, that'll be different, but we need
Yeah.
to start with the process of
Mhm.
getting on Zoom on the YouTube first. This way they always stay recorded.
Don't do any meeting the first week of April. I finally got into Stanford for my second opinion, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you.
That wind was
Okay.
really scary up there. Planes were upside down at the airport, cars were flipped over in the parking lot, 90 miles
All
an
right,
hour.
and then let Bob know also that I'm in an audit meeting,
And you
okay,
can
so
kind
let
of
him
see
know
all
that
the numbers.
I'll be out for about an hour, okay?
No, I flew to San Francisco. When I came
No
back,
problem.
I have
All right.
never
Okay, fine.
seen so much water between that row of mountains and that row of mountains. We have 5 more dams in California, it still doesn't hold all the water that's out there.
Crazy, huh? All right, well, we have anything that, I'll go with these this weekend, right? No questions. Anything sticks out to you?
No, I have some questions on, the same ones I have every month
Mhm.
about the budget. But we're gonna look at that in a few minutes.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, the only one that I had a big question on was okay. Our other expenses. We budgeted for other expenses, 16, well, more than that. 111,000. What, does anybody, oh, that's contingencies. Never mind, I answered my own question.
Yeah, and, yeah, I see that, yeah. I really didn't see too much that drew a lot of attention to anything
No.
for me. Do you have anything at all that you wanted to, I went through it and I don't really have made any notes of anything, but,
Oh, this is just January.
yeah.
I'm thinking March. Why hasn't CPAC cashed that check? But this is January.
Right, it's
financials.
January, yeah.
Okay, I move that we accept this, the financials for January.
Yeah, I second that. Okay. All those in favor of 5.2, approving approval of January 2023 financials? Aye, so 2-0. 5.3 is review and adjust annual budget 2022-2023. So right here.
Okay, so you're probably wondering why I've included some of last year's stuff. One of the things is that we haven't gone back to adjust numbers. And I have a question, Linda. Do you remember what numbers were taken? Because Steve pretty much kind of worked on this, and then everybody kind of had, their opinions and
Steve
stuff.
does the income, I worry about the expenses, yeah.
Okay, so the 350, we started the process, what, April, mostly May though, right, would you say?
We started looking at it in April, yeah, we did the bulk of it in May. We started looking at it in April and then we put it off because we were waiting for something and I can't remember what it was.
And then touched it up in June.
And touched it, and then we finalized it in June.
Mhm.
And the, I see that you're saying that we actually have more money in there. You do know that this figure that we start with comes from our auditor? Steve gets it.
That's my question.
Steve
Is
gets
where
that
is
figure
that
from
number
the,
from?
Steve gets it from the auditor.
From the auditor, from his final report, or? Okay, so whatever the auditor says is the,
It's, okay, here's an example of, you know how, the county doesn't keep track of our interest for our endowment fund?
yes,
We can't transfer anything until Rob or whoever's auditing gives us his figure. The county will only go by his figure. So we did the same thing starting budget. Steve would get that figure from him.
so it'd be in that report.
It should be in the report.
So whatever our starting cash is, would be
Would be
his
in that
final report.
his final report, yes.
And why would that be?
It's just the way he did it. I don't know if he did it for consistency because of the way he has to do the interest. I don't know.
So his numbers he gets from where then? So when he,
Steve, when we start the budget project,
okay,
Steve gets the cash on hand from Rob.
okay,
And I verified that with him because, we've been texting back
Yeah.
and forth. He seems to not know how to go on vacation. So, you should be able to go back and verify it with that final report.
No, that's fine. I couldn't understand exactly where that number came from.
Yeah,
Because based on like, you seeing why I included those,
yeah.
based on those, it didn't make sense because at the end of June, we were at like a 500,000.
But if we in fact had that much money, it would reflect on your bank statements, and it's not reflecting on your bank statements.
Well, it
Or
would
on
not be on the bank statements
It
because
would be in the
it's still
county
the
statements, okay, it would still be in the county statements.
And it does,
It does?
yeah. And so when you go to the count, like when you go to his numbers, that's what these numbers are in the back. And they match pretty darn close to those numbers. Let me see, this one was, okay, this is January.
It matches the numbers that you've pulled up?
Yeah. I don't have the whole thing in here. I don't have the profit and loss. Yeah, let me pull his numbers that look like this, like our end of January ones. Let me go pull these out. That look like January. See how that 258
Mm-hmm.
matches our balance sheet in the front? So all those numbers match to whatever the balance sheet is. So sections, I need to do these in single pages. So they're not so crazy. It's like the 146, those all match to how these are. So the same thing happened when I looked at these.
For this year?
Yeah, let me go pull them real quick.
A lot of questions with the county and stuff and how they do things. I don't know.
They're so lax. I don't know how they ever get through an audit. I honest to God do not understand how they can make an audit and ever pass an audit.
Yeah,
And it's not just on us. It's on
oh, no,
several different groups.
I'm sure, but, yeah. Shame we can't keep these things seemingly straight.
Well, it's getting so convoluted because we keep adding account numbers and we're not crediting stuff to the proper account numbers.
We're not, when you say, I mean, is it what, the county or us here? Really?
It's really hard when you get a question of how's that with the budget? And then you say, well, you're over budget $250. Oh, but I've got employee training mixed in with that. No, you don't do that.
Do we have a number for employee training?
Yeah. But we have all the travel expenses for the board members and CPAC, going to convention stuff. It's all mixed in with employee training. Shouldn't be mixed that way.
No, we're not employees.
No, and how can you ask somebody if you're over budget if you've got convoluted figures and you don't know what all's in there? But I'm not a board member, so I don't count. My opinion doesn't count.
Yes, it does, but you need to ask that question. Why?
I have asked it a lot, Jim, a lot.
And so, then what was the answer given?
Not much.
What?
The next month. Cause
Well,
you heard,
what we have to do is, we have to be consistent what we're doing.
there was no consistency.
See, and that's critical when you do financials are, it's matching and doing the same thing each and every time, otherwise you can trust the numbers, you know?
And there's things that needs to be talked about not on camera.
Yeah. You forget we're on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, I have trouble with that. We can't talk about pay increases, and we can't talk about stuff like that we should be able to discuss because
For the, employee.
we're the audit committee. We would be just like if two board members, like we used to do with two board members was the audit committee. All they did was sit and drink coffee.
Yeah. So right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to move some numbers around. Actually, looks like it's increasing the numbers. We're actually saying there's more cash available or what?
That's what she's saying.
But if that's the case, where is it at? There has to be, someone has, if there's cash available and we're saying it's there, then there has to be some documentation that from somebody other than us.
Yeah.
Cause we just can't put that down and say that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I just want to understand, just to make sure. 'Cause every time I get one back, so like, for instance, here's your May for last year. So all the numbers that end up at the back is from all our reports from PBQ, from county, okay? So when we have like the 322, he's matching it up to the cash and treasury, and that's what county says we have,
Okay.
okay? What they don't know we have yet is what's in our bank account, because what's ever transferred
At Bank of Sierra.
at Bank of Sierra. So is why I take that, and then also the accounts receivable, which is still, pending kind of for the transfer. So is why I take that one, There's another 2 more, I think.
So what, you would think that would catch itself up though?
Yeah,
On the
so
next
then your
cycle.
petty and then your, Bank of Sierra.
So this was in August?
Oh, perfect, thank you. This is copy, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So is why I take all of these. So when I added all those up, that's my 412. 243. So this is May. And that's the one that I'm trying to understand, if this was the end of May, which that's when we probably reflected off of. And then when we go to June, it's probably the one that we need to adjust more to. But if you're saying he takes it from the report,
He gets it from the auditor, okay, but you cannot count your accounts receivable. You cannot count.
no, but see, I don't know, if this accounts receivable, this specific line is money that we've already requested from county, not accounts receivable money coming in from customers, we've already received it.
Okay,
So this is money that the PBQ, this is the one that I, set up for us to be able to track when we requested money from county
okay,
to transfer over to our Bank of Sierra. This is the money right now, at this month, that was in limbo. So
is
we
that money
requested
not
it.
already up here though?
Right, it's not. Because so in our numbers in QuickBooks, we've already said that, basically we've already, from county, we've already requested it. It's in that limbo phase of we requested it, so it's not in the county numbers, but we haven't received it in the bank.
They've already pulled it from here,
Yes.
it's just not in our bank.
Yes. So that's how he's reflected it, that's how we reflect it on our QuickBooks, is why you see it a little differently right there. So is why you take that one, which I know it kind of is confusing, but it was the only way that we can track PBQs, because there was a time that we were requesting and we weren't getting it.
Right,
So this was a way that we can track, okay, we requested this money so we can pay these bills. So now it's in that limbo phase of, it's not quite in county, but it hasn't hit our bank yet. It's in that limbo phase, so we have to track it somehow.
and you're sure it's not in this
Positive.
number up here?
Positive.
Okay, so, I'm like Jim, I would like to see it on something other than our paperwork.
Yeah, and I'll pull, I can pull all the county reports, so all the ones that they send us.
Because I'm not comfortable adjusting the budget
And I
based
don't
on
want to
this.
yet, I don't want to yet, but this is where I want to bring attention to this.
Yeah,
I didn't wanna change any numbers today, what I wanna do is bring some attention to it so we can research this a little bit more.
have you run this by Andy?
Absolutely.
And
We spent a couple hours
And
in
what
the
he-
evening,
And he thinks that
he didn't even realize how county, reflected on theirs.
not many people do.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
a
say I
different, it's
But
a
we literally
different,
tore, it was one of the evenings that he came out, I think we were here till like almost 7 at night. We literally were tearing apart county numbers and understand the whole thing, the whole process.
How much we talking about typically? What do you
about
think?
112,000.
Good night. What's bad about that, it doesn't show up anywhere. It's not like you can say,
No,
aha.
we didn't budget according to that.
So I
So
don't
my
want alarm, but I
question
do we need a resource.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna suggest you do, and I know he's not our auditor anymore. Why don't you give, Rob a call?
Absolutely, yeah.
And go over this with him and see what his opinion is on it.
Mhm.
Because to me, I don't know why he wouldn't catch something like this, follow me, when he's doing the audit. That's my suggestion, call him and then,
But was he hasn't finished 21, 22. So these aren't his numbers.
no, he hasn't finished 22, 23.
Yeah.
No, 22, 23 is our new auditor. Right?
We don't have our audit back from him yet, I thought we got it in January.
No, he's still on that draft. We're still working on a draft.
So Steve's working off of last year's numbers.
Which we wouldn't have had that audit report, right? So he would have had to, that's why I thought he came off of these numbers.
Unless he called him and asked him, cause he does
About
that,
where he was at.
about where he was at. I wish it wasn't nighttime, I'd text the
Yeah,
son.
and we still don't have anything, we still haven't closed that out yet, we haven't got our completed from.
We should
No,
have.
he's on a draft. He's almost done. Cause he has sent me a couple of drafts, but there's a couple of questions he has.
See, and
So
we
he's
should
been
have.
trying to work.
This new guy's gonna have
This
us
new guy's
on
already asking,
December 31st is what his goal is.
Yeah,
That's why I was positive on him, cause that's where he's shooting for.
yeah, cause this new guy is the one who's doing 22, 23.
Okay,
Because we haven't finished 23 yet. 23 will be in June.
in June,
mm-hmm,
this is the latest we've ever gotten this audit from Rob.
Really?
Usually we have it
I
from
wonder
Monday
how,
to January.
so can we so when we finally get that from him, are we gonna be able to verify some of these, or what?
Well, if we get it from him and he agrees with this, that this and this should have been included with it, with the totals that he gave,
Because the way I talked to County about it, I asked her, I said, you know, and she said that's why sometimes people don't send their report until August, or even September, their budget, because they're waiting for the finals of June, and they don't get that until
see,
July.
and we did our budget early this year.
Yeah, and so that's why she said sometimes they kind of start it, but they don't do the final.
But that's kind of pathetic though, we really need to have I mean, we're several months behind on the budget. If we wait, we could be 2 to
Yeah,
3
but-
months behind.
Yeah, but
You wanna start it, but, and we can give them a first kind of, like we did, but she says that usually when they get their finalists, that's about when they adjust the thing, so we can give them kind of an idea.
So the
of where
first
we're at.
quarter,
Then
basically.
kind of August or September, we can finalize it.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
that's why I asked her
it's-
about this, I said, so our cash available and starting, and this is my questioning to her, just to make sure how everybody else is running. And it's, yeah, it's whatever's in your accounts, which would be, those numbers that I pointed out, okay? So if I'm like, oh, all right, well, if that's the case, and I'm thinking, at that time, I didn't have Steve's
this
answer.
is last year's figures.
Mhm.
I'm telling
So
you.
I thought maybe Steve was going off of this number, rounding it up close, because we didn't have June yet, right? So I thought, okay, he was pretty close in that one, but he's not taking into account these other ones, right?
Yeah.
So then it and that wasn't hugely bad, right? I mean, if you wanted to play a safe number between 350 and 412, but it is huge once we hit to June. Cause then we're 500 and something
Well,
thousand.
yeah, because we got all our major expenses are looking at us right down the barrel right
So
now.
then when everybody keeps telling me we're over budget, I'm kind of like, I don't understand it. And that's why, because this number necessarily doesn't reflect what we should have started with in our cash.
112,000 more.
Mhm.
That's a lot. But what's hard for me to believe is, where is that? I mean, you would think it have to be somewhere.
Well, this happened with that $80,000, I believe, that came in the grant,
That came in the grant
Okay.
and then it went out.
that we didn't account for
Yes.
when we were doing this budget. So that has to get added in here. That has to get added into our income. It's not in here at this point, but it has to get added into our income.
But you
Because
can't add it to income because
you have to. They said in order for us to be able, you have to add it into an income. It was a grant, we do it as a grant thing, because then we expense it out.
But it'll just line itself out.
It'll
with the
wash
expenses
itself.
though.
It will, but right now, what you see in county is that $80,000 check that we paid out, but they have nothing to show that came in, because we didn't budget it that way. If you're looking at your county numbers on their budget, we never included that
that
number,
in the
but
budget.
we included the expense.
But we
Yeah.
did the budget so early, we didn't know about it.
Exactly. Same thing with the taxes, that tax money that came in, that 67,000, it's in here. But we didn't account for it. So when we went to go transfer that 100,000 or whatever, well, it was easy to do, because, oh, you have all that extra money. We never included it, we should have adjusted that income based on that tax money that came in. It's over now, because that was in last year's
Last year,
Last year.
fiscal, yeah.
yeah.
But at that
But
very end, we should
that will
change that
still
income.
adjust, make this figure.
This should, yeah, by adjusting this, it should help, but
Yeah.
the point is that when we got that, since it was an
Those
unexpected
two
large
items
amount.
alone make the difference.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, and, gosh,
And so as we go down, here we go, we take the $80,000 out, so then you're looking at this 117,000, right?
yeah, we never showed the income
Okay.
coming in.
So here we go, where's that equipment one? equipment, $107,000, like, hey, we didn't budget for that, we budgeted for $50,000. Well, of course we didn't budget for that.
Because it's got the
Yeah,
$80,000.
the $80,000. The other thing that also didn't get budgeted was those lawn equipment things. That didn't get budgeted in as a number at the time,
No.
because we didn't talk about purchasing those, so we need to
No,
adjust that.
because we
as
didn't
well.
talk about purchasing anything this
Right.
year.
Is why I wanted to spend the time with you and being able to do this kind of offhand, so,
Yeah.
because it's gonna take a little time.
We're having lunch. Catered.
It might be dinner.
So then,
And dinner.
so what needs to be done is that in the future going forward on the budget, we need to have basically a first edition.
We won't have this
First
problem with
edition.
this new auditor.
Well, we still will, because every time we create the audit, every time we create a new budget, we're never gonna have a final. Until, I mean, if you're talking about, see, cause like, even if you finished in January, right? We would have already created 22-23 budget last year. We wouldn't have had his numbers. So even if he finished this year in 23
Maybe
or
that's
last in
why
22,
we have last year's
that's why we're
numbers to
always
start with.
off. That's why we're
That
always
could
off.
be why
We
we,
keep
have no
creating
choice.
a
we're
year
behind,
behind.
we're a year behind on those
Same
figures.
thing with the budget numbers, when I was kind of looking at how you guys
So
create
what
the
we need
budget
to do
numbers.
is we need to adjust it on that first quarter, we need to really bring back to finalize the budget.
And so when it looked like we increased budget here, it's like, okay, well, we increased a little bit. I was looking at these numbers here. Okay, we increased a little bit, right? Because, times are different or whatever, so we increased. But if you really look at it, like this concrete baseline, I mean, that was $80,000. Take $80,000 there off of it, we didn't increase the budget very much for this year.
No, we didn't.
No.
We held back. We
A
kept
lot.
it really low.
Right.
And then you cut it another $100 and some $1,000.
I didn't have that choice.
Well, we're not gonna talk about him.
But, I mean, here is this concrete base, that necessarily, we can't account for that number, because that's an in and out. So saying that we increased our budget to help our expenses, that's not the case, that's not true at all. You need to take this $80,000 out of this thing, and then figure out what our real expenses are. The other thing is also,
I
I
think
worked
we
with
put that
Andy.
there. Do you remember?
Which one?
The 80,000.
Because it's revenue, it's money that came in. But there's different ways that we can create this budget. I have seen also the endowment ones, we can't touch it. That money shouldn't be in there as revenue that we then expense against. We're cutting ourselves short. So if we're saying we got $1,641,000 to play with, endowment, we know that's not our money. I look at it, that's not my money that I can touch. I can't do anything with that money anyways. So why is it in our revenue and then we expense out in the same way?
It's just a number at this point,
It has to be, we need to create budgets in a different way of exactly what revenue spending money is versus a budget that's just based on like the endowment and stuff.
Well, this,
And then only the interest comes
this-
back into here.
this was created by a past board member. This format was.
Well, in
Maybe
regards,
it's time to update it.
that's where I'm at with this thing. This is not working anymore.
No,
I think it gives people misconceptions that we're overspending or we're putting numbers in there that can't be touched and used.
So then.
And then it cuts us short because they're accounting for this number here as
Yeah.
spending money, but it's
but
not.
every time you sit down for an audit meeting or for and I'm gonna say this in front of the camera so those two yahoos can hear me, I don't agree. They say, oh, we've got plenty of money in the bank. Look, we've got these 5 accounts, add them all together and subtract out the expenses. You cannot do it that way. You've got 2 accounts you can't touch.
And I never, and that's why I don't look at those accounts to touch.
Plenty of money.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, so we're not,
So we're a year behind on the figures that he used.
yeah.
And he told me he used from the auditor, so that means he had to use last year's figures.
Well, he had to use
If he doesn't have this year's figures yet,
or somehow.
or an estimate.
Right.
So
And we still haven't got a final on
he's probably about maybe another week away from completing
I
the
was
finish.
wondering why I didn't have a copy of it. I went through the book yesterday.
Because, that puts us at the end of March, beginning of April to get that done.
And there's a time frame we have to have that for the county, and if I'm not mistaken, It's the month of April, it has to be figured out.
And it'll probably make it, but still, that's
Doesn't
not
give
good.
us any time to
No.
go through it and prove it or not, you know?
This is me calculating all his numbers and. Well, let me show you an idea of what Kern does, and a lot of the cemeteries are doing it in this way. First of all, I think this is a good suggestion. Is one of the things is that we don't identify what our funds are. So time after time after time after time, we get the knowledge of the people from before us, correct? And so it can kind of dwindle down to what it actually is today versus what it was 20 years ago, right? This one, they actually create the whole procedure, the whole budget procedure and what these numbers are. So you have the reserve funds, where they come from and what they're about, where the money comes from and how to budget it. You also have like the general fund, the property tax, they literally explain it, which I would like to kind of get to this point. I think this is really important for us to have as a general rule for ongoing, whoever comes after me and after that and whatever, they know how these numbers got generated and what they stand for. Because all we see is 806s, 807s, 773s, what did they mean? And constantly, we sometimes have to remind each other what
For
they are.
transparency purposes, nobody out there knows what the hell that is.
No.
Right, but this is the ongoing, so when they create the budget every year, this is always included in there. The explanation of exactly what those funds are, the percentages, what they've increased, how much they've increased, and not just created a certain number, not just like, well, let's do 50,000. Well, yeah, let's hold 100,000 in contingency. Well, why? We need to come up with a set certain number. Just like when we, we decide, okay, we're at the end of the year, I think it's safe to say that we can put a 20% of whatever was our into a contingency for the next year. Have a formula. Have an actual formula, and not just kind of one that we wing out of our space.
Well, no, he didn't wing it out, that was
No,
the
no,
difference
but I'm just
between
saying-
what your income and your loss,
I
and
hear
your
you.
expenses were, and that's the figure he stuck in there.
I hear you, but I mean, something that has an actual number.
Yeah.
So then kind of you to the tables, well, when it comes to here, which I thought was really neat, is that they separate their funds. So you have.
And that's the way we should be doing it.
Absolutely. So like they have their at needs, and right now, we have a pre-need fund we can't touch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that number should not be included because it's something we cannot
Yeah,
touch.
that's what we call it, the true dedicated funds. I can't count those. They're there, but I can't count them.
And if you're gonna do that, you just put them at the bottom of the thing.
Well,
Yeah.
and a lot of the pre-need funds in different places that they do, they keep even our pre-need sales right now, even if they pay cash, they put it into this pre-need fund to draw an interest that's higher, right?
Exactly,
Then they only pull that number when that person passes and uses that grade.
and that's probably
At
a
the
smart
rate,
thing.
at the rate of what it was that day.
Then,
So the interest helps update that number. So the people that bought it 50 years ago, they only paid $50. Let's say we, at that time, put it into this pre-need fund. Well, that's
It's
drawn
grown.
interest over the years.
Right.
So today the grade is $1,000. We pull it out of the pre-need at the 1,000, not the 50.
and do you pull the interest out at that time too?
You pull it based on today, that's what the interest would be. So if your $50 was in 50 years ago, right, and your rate today for that plot is now 1,000, that's when you pull it out. So all that interest that's acquired, that's what
Now
you're
you
pulling,
can
is
use
that
it.
interest to make up to that
And
$1,000.
do they separate the interest out, or do they just leave it as
Leave it
pre-needs
in
total?
there. They leave it in there. They don't bring over the interest until it's needed for the plot. It's not like, our endowment, how we use the interest to help with expenses.
Yeah.
Nope, they legally leave that interest in there, into that pre-need account to accumulate more to help with future, plot purchases that raise up.
Right.
So the only
Makes
time you
sense.
would pull that back or take it back was after it was used, after it was.
Once it gets
After
used
the
for.
burial,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how we now, everybody's kind of figuring, it's like, okay, we're gonna be, doing these pre-needs, they can buy the casket, they can buy whatever, and I said, no, we're gonna leave all that money in there,
Right.
right? We leave that money in there and only pull it at the time of need. Well,
Okay.
whatever that interest is,
Then we bring it over.
then we bring it over.
So are we gonna run into the same issue with that kind of thing that we ran into with the endowment, where we're required to take that out once in a year?
These places have not been required to pull it out.
Okay,
And you can tie it back to, because it's not used yet, basically, we gotta leave it there until it's used, and once it's used, then we can bring it across.
This is current, this is the current one, this is current, this is Danny, from Tehachapi.
before I leave, would you make me a set of those?
This one?
Yeah, that's the
Absolutely.
one. So I
Give me
can
one
read.
second, it's only with my kids at school, I never know.
Yeah.
Hello?
I like this, report.
Hi, Nora. Good, how are you?
What I like about it, it clearly talks about it.
Everything we do has got 48 pages now. Condense it down a little bit,
Yeah,
you know,
but this is
that's professional. We're
Yeah.
not professional, we're mom and pop.
but
Still,
we need to start,
looking professional.
yeah. I know that all our, what we're trying to do is good, but we need to get to this, you know. And then what bothers me is that we're pulling numbers over.
And I keep harping at Calman and Steve that everything that's looking at all of this, you can't just, you gotta have some finance experience. You can't just say, oh, this is what we're gonna start with, because this is what happens. We start with a figure that obviously is not a good figure. And
Well,
now that she brought this up, yeah, this is last year's figures we started with.
what bothers me though is the number, where is it? I mean, is it,
You want it to be tangible where you can see it somewhere else other than our QuickBooks,
yes.
which I agree with.
I'm always leery, there always needs to be a check or a backup to that, you know, I see the
Because-
numbers, but at the same time, then
Because
where
that's
is
the
it?
same thing I've been griping about for 4 years now, is that we get our financials and it says X amount was paid for payroll. Show me the total page from payroll. I'm gonna make sure that money got put over into our bank account. I'm gonna audit that by looking at that figure here, is it on our bank statement?
Isn't that what the auditor should be doing?
I don't know what they're doing, because I'm not allowed to talk to them, because I'm not a board member. See?
But you aren't, but to me, if you're on this committee, you should be able to ask questions on any of that stuff. Why?
I was told not to.
And the reason for that was?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay, I'm just curious.
I don't argue, I just do what I'm told.
But there's no reason, I mean, to me, to have an open call, you should have all this. Is there any reason why, I'm just kinda curious what the rules are, why isn't her being a member of this committee, that she's able to talk to Andy or somebody? I know as far as the direction is going to you two, but is there
Well,
any?
she and I can talk all we want,
Right,
you know, no, I just told her not to talk to Andy, because I'm not a board member.
but
So if I had a
Oh,
question
maybe because of that situation that we had last year.
with you know who,
but what if you're there?
but I'm an active member now.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a problem if I'm there, because I'd like to hear whatever, if that's okay.
Because I was gonna say, to me, instead of having me here, Andy would be here, and you guys would have this conversation.
Yeah, we can have, like, set up one of the afternoons. Right now, he's like super crazy
What's
busy.
tax season, I know.
Yeah, he says kind of, cause I tried to get with him to, we wanted to kind of look at this a little bit better.
Can I come to that? When you guys look
No,
at
absolutely, yeah, but that was like in May, so it's still a little bit away, and we kind of need to
Yeah.
start doing something beforehand.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah,
Because this
because we
is
don't
in-
wanna wait until June, because
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's gonna happen. We had this happen 3 years ago. We waited to adjust anything until the first part of June. It takes the county 2 weeks to get this stuff processed. That's why we ended up, they cut us off, we couldn't make payroll. And that's
We
when
have
we
a
found
conference this
contingency.
week.
Mhm.
Danny will be up there, the one that runs Kern and Tehachapi.
Oh, good.
And so I'm gonna pick his brain. He's also the one has a cemetery district CPA, the one that we're going
Uh-huh.
through too, which is perfect because if this is how they run theirs and.
We should
and
be doing it the
the
same way.
Yeah, there's
So-
no reason why we shouldn't, I like the way that looks. I
And
mean,
we're at the end of our fiscal
And I
year,
like how
so
they separate the
Yeah.
revenue endowments versus their other
talk,
type of revenues.
talk to him and then see if we can get it on the agenda to change to this format.
The
first of the
I'll
year.
ask him, if you wanna take a drive down to Kern one day, I'll ask him if he's willing to take an afternoon with us.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. I mean, he's a literally easygoing guy that he
I think
spends.
I talked to him, I can't remember.
Easygoing guy. So I'll ask him that if he's willing to kind of share his input on how they came to figuring a budget out in this way.
But okay. So this is just, this is their whole budget, or this is just an example?
An example, I think.
Okay.
mhm.
I was gonna say, how'd they get it down to one page? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I think this might, let me see what this one is. No, it might be their whole budget.
Current secure debt need, use of money, of property, other revenues.
Orange County has the same type of format. They also separate their endowment as a revenue and, instead of into a revenue, spending revenue.
The only problem with doing it this way, if you don't break your expenditures down more, how do you know where you're gone over?
And so they might have a different like layout.
They
But
might
this
have
just be their.
an additional page
Yeah,
that.
Because
you know,
honestly, if you look at county looks like that.
Yeah, I would
Our
say,
county numbers look just like that.
this is probably a
This-
accumulation page, everything is
But
there,
this is good,
but doesn't break it down.
this is good.
Yeah,
This needs to be broken down a little more.
yeah, and I'm
Because-
sure they probably have that.
Because that way you can say, okay, you've gone over $8,000 on this item, you're gonna have to slow up or else pull, cause that's what I would like to do
Yeah.
with adjusting this budget. We got things in here in our budget that we have not spent one penny on yet.
Yeah, which means,
Now, some of it is going to happen between March and June, because your water's going up, your mowing's going up, that kind of stuff.
true.
So you have to be very careful what you steal from, you know, what you steal money from to move to somewhere else. That's probably not a
I
good
can
term.
say it, yeah.
Okay. What you move,
Right.
what you
yeah,
move,
yeah.
you know?
Here's Orange County. Orange County does something similar. Now, their budget whole thing is literally a, presentation. But it's laid out really good.
But they also bury over 300 people a month. We don't have that luxury.
No, but it's kind of nice to see how
Yeah.
they've come up with a certain budget.
You need a Bloody Mary.
Let's see if I find out the one on this one, I'll make
But
a
see-
copy for this.
Claire, I think this right here is a brilliant arrangement of money coming in. This is brilliant right here. It's short and sweet. This is probably good, but I think for each item here, you need to have a backup page. You know, all your breakdown on your payroll, your health insurance, all that crap, you know?
Yeah.
Then you come down here to service and supplies, all your breakdown, you know?
Sure.
I think you need to have a backup page for that. And so
Or-
I'm thinking.
Or something like where it explains how they have in the front, the explanation of everything that's included.
Well, that's fine for Joe Blow off the street for us, but for a working copy for us, we need a little more of a
Cause you need to
breakdown.
know what comes up.
And that's something we probably don't even have to share with people, just as long as you have your totals here, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need, as a committee, you need to break down and look at those numbers and see how we're comparing to things, you know?
Well, we just, like I said, this has been run mom and pop, and if we're going to become a professional business, then we need to behave like professional, and we need to have set guidelines, and this is how we do this is how we do this. You know, we started writing, Steve and I started writing up 3 years ago, things that we wanted to do. When we get to a point where we're comfortable with our finances, where we're not having to do this because one person on the board, then we would be able to start looking at other things as an audit committee, as a procedure audit. You know, something like as simple as that,
Yeah.
you know. just to keep ourselves employed.
Yeah.
Here's Orange Counties, here's part of Orange Counties.
They're kind of doing the same thing.
Same thing, see,
Mhm.
look at they have it broken down a little more, but, you know, there's subheadings, but
Right.
it's pretty much the same thing.
Here's part of it too, here's your salary that they broke down. Salaries and employee benefits, professional, like, they did break down a little bit,
Yeah,
but
you know,
not as much.
but not as much, and see, I don't think, well, that's just my opinion. I think our payroll is broken down too much. I think it could be consolidated, maybe 4 or 5 line items, you know, separate health insurance, but all the taxes should be in the same one. The ADT reports I used to get, that's the way they broke it down. I got another page to the back, this is what FICA is, but the page that I shared with the boss, cause if I'd have handed him the back one, his head would have exploded. Too many lines, you know, but, I just think we need to consolidate, and I think it's,
And with this new company, we have someone else doing the audit report now, right? Or doing the
The CPA, the new CPA,
So, yeah, so are you still gonna work with him individually, on a monthly basis as he comes in and go through things?
no, this is a yearly.
this will be your yearly.
Yearly,
audit.
so we still gonna keep Andy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, alright, good.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's still normal, yeah.
and so it'd be nice, if you ever work to talk to him about this type of setup and stuff?
That's the time that we spend the 3 hours and stuff for.
Yeah.
And he's always told me, he goes, the more you give them, the more they're gonna want, and the more they're not gonna
Exactly.
understand. And so.
And that's exactly what's happening with all of our numbers. It's too confusing.
Yeah.
And so, but he is actually liked the way I laid it out as far as the cost of goods sold and stuff. He goes, there's a better understanding of it so they can see,
Yeah.
the in and out, especially because we purchased 20 vaults, you know, 50 vaults, 60 vaults or whatever in March. And so here we have this negative number or whatever that shows. In April, we have this high number, because, well, we didn't have to purchase those vaults anymore. So it looks like, oh, this income's really good,
Yeah.
this one was really low or whatever, you know, we must have spent more. When you do the vaults, it now comes out when it gets spent. So I purchased them here in March. Yes, you're gonna see it in like your 772, that type of number. But when you look at it in profit and loss, it literally will take that cost when it gets sold. So you know exactly how that month
And it
broke
gives you an
down.
inventory also.
Yeah, so you see your number in your cash, you know, you're spending or whatever, less, but when it comes down to the report, you know exactly how things got spent
Yeah.
that month. And so same thing with the concrete basis, you'll see that now, that number matches up compared to, we paid for them, and then you see like some charges, and those were always off, but always balanced out at the end. Now you're actually gonna see, cause I put concrete bases the same way as I did the vaults. Whenever we sold it, is when it comes out, so it balances out that zero instead of some off number.
Instead,
Every
yeah,
month.
Yeah.
instead of having a balance,
Mm-hmm.
remaining each month.
And that's what that's what you see here, where's our, this year, go to January. So here you have, we have like all the charges and stuff here, so when we kind of look at the charges here, right? Remember that when we budgeted, some of these things, when we figured what our revenue is gonna be, is actually sitting here now, because it's in cost of goods sold. So for instance, we're only gonna do really is your, where's our vault? Okay, so our vault sales number, that number, when we figured that number was in here, cause you'll see there's no
budget
number,
there.
right? So when you guys assumed, okay, we're gonna do, probably in revenue, whatever, 66,000, whatever for the month, that's what kind of got averaged, cause of whatever we thought our revenue was gonna be. You actually need to take, is it that 24?
24.
Okay, and add it to this one, if you wanna see how, when we first set up this budget, how it's gonna look, so actually add that 24,000 up here.
Well, and that's a problem with making changes mid-year after you've already budgeted.
But there's no way to fix that, and, cause, like I said, when I came into this, I still needed to figure out exactly what was being done and how things were even figured into these numbers, so that's why we knew I was gonna make changes until we kind of got it the way we
Yeah.
needed to. So, now what you see here is, here's your total income. Now it's your cost of goods sold. So your cost of goods sold now, it actually tells you out of your revenue, out of your cost of goods sold, here's your actual gross profit, because it actually already took those numbers out.
Exactly.
Instead of finding those numbers, those vault costs down here, it already gave you that number way up here. And the actual of whatever these expenses are, so based on, so not taking your lawnmowers, not taking any of that, because normally your vault expenses would be in here somewhere, right? These are actual to whatever the services were. So now, you take 143, and now let's take all your lawnmower expenses, all your extra help, all your payroll, all, everything off of that. Because without these vaults, we couldn't do this, right?
Yeah.
So it's why that whatever has to do with that service that we need for that service, whether the concrete base, whether it be the base, whatever,
They're
has to do
grouped
with
together.
all that group, now let's find an actual number for that, and that's what that is.
Okay, but this is just a suggestion.
Sure.
From here to here, this needs to be, it needs to be explained better for some reason.
Sure.
I can't tell you why I'm saying that. Okay, because if we're gonna take this number here, if we're gonna take that, and we're gonna deduct all the rest of this out at the end of the report, this is not readable to the average person who's going to be looking at this and calling and complaining, if you get my drift.
But it's the
And
same
there's a
thing.
couple people on your board that way.
It's the same thing with this. Nobody ever has looked at this number.
No, I have.
Okay. Majority of the people have not noticed that number,
Yeah.
right? That being zero. You have to take that 29,200 and add that. Because the budget was based of that number.
On that
In
number.
order to come up with these numbers, that number was in place first.
Right,
So if you're gonna calculate this number in the budget, you have to take in consideration over here. We're not gonna go, and actually, Andy's not gonna go in and take our cash account every month and change
and
this.
change that. No,
That's
you
the
don't,
point.
you don't wanna do that.
So you pencil it, to really figure it in, you kind of pencil it, I'm like, okay, that 29,200, whatever, that was original, let's pencil that in. So then when you get to this bottom, you still need to take in consideration that 29,200 added to the bottom,
And that's not,
29,000.
and I'm sure that's not being
And what are we
done.
at? That's
No.
$80,000 versus somebody who's looking at it at 58.
Yeah, and that's, that's causing.
And that's why you
So
have
whenever,
the board members stand outside screaming at a person that's on the audit committee.
Yeah.
so when the budget, literally, we figured that it was only gonna be $73, we ended up with $80,000.
Yeah,
And I guess that's where I get the whole, well, we're in the budget, I'm like, what are you guys seeing? Cause I'm seeing
No,
it
see,
different.
I go across line by line, I don't look at the total.
But the problem is that we never adjusted our budget, like I said, with that grant, with that lawnmower,
No.
all
and
those
those,
things.
and that's.
And we
not-
talked about that 3 months ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And we still had nothing, did nothing
Yeah,
with it.
because your equipment is still showing the 107, whatever thousand, 107 off, right? That
Yeah.
we didn't budget for, we already should have fixed that $80,000,
Yeah.
we should, and even the niches. Do you guys realize that the niche money is going into expansion fund? It's not going into, our 772 or whatever, our spending fund?
And that, but that,
At need and pre-need, all niche money is going there. So what happened, when we purchased those niches at 40-something
where
thousand
did you take
dollars,
the money from?
772,
No, it should have come out of the expansion
should
fund.
have.
That's the way, I think that's the way we had it set up before. You would
Sure.
buy niches and then all the money from the niches goes back into expansion fund.
Should have.
And
So
the
what,
logic in that was, it's
so
an
what, how come we're
expansion.
saying should've, I mean,
Should have,
It
and
did
it
not.
didn't.
It did, it came out of 772 when we paid for the niches, but all the money's going back into the expansion fund.
So it looked like we overspent in our account
so,
because we never transferred money from the expansion.
so how, where does this end up at? I mean, who's not doing that? I mean, is it,
Well, it's been going on for 3-4 years, you know?
And so when it gets, requested like what we should do, what we shouldn't do, or whatever, the audit makes a suggestion, and I'm sitting back and I'm looking at things and honestly, I mean, that's why I stay quiet until I know what I know. And so dealing with these numbers, I told you, I've been kind of looking at these numbers for a while, and I didn't want to present or say anything until I knew what I was looking at. And so speaking with Andy, speaking with the county, I'm pretty confident in bringing this to you today.
Well, but it makes sense now, if we don't have our audit from last year already, then he had to have started with last year's audit numbers.
Where else get it done? I mean, or they gave him a number that looked like it was.
That we were getting close to or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Or the conversation I can just hear between two old guys says, oh, I think you're gonna have this by this amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
No, we have to have some reality here.
So how?
Okay, and our budget needs to be in on August 1st or
So
August 30th.
I'll call her again.
I think it's the 30th.
Okay.
So that'll give us June, July, August. So if we don't start our budget until May,
We can start in May. We wait for bank statements, in June and for county numbers, which she says will
but
not
we
come
can
until.
start it with our expenses. We could start with the
Absolutely.
expenses in May.
Mhm.
Then we move to June, we drop in the dollar amounts that we're predicting that we're gonna come in.
Yeah.
And then by July, we would have a good budget,
And
or
it probably won't be because of the way county is, and they're gonna find out, we're probably not gonna get those numbers till the end of July almost. So we just need to be ready with everything, just plug in those numbers.
and put it on an August meeting. Oh, that's really gonna cut it close. That's only gonna give us 2 weeks before
But
it's
that's
due.
crazy. Why?
But we can do it, like she said.
If we
can do a
pre-work
pre-
it though.
We can do a pre-number with just what we know of June even county numbers, right? Or May county numbers, cause she says people still then will revamp it in September and stuff and on. So
They
we
told
can
me
do that.
we can change it 15 times a year, which, that just boggles my mind, but
We
yeah.
just need to come up with the budget.
Okay,
So
so
if we can get something really close, and then we know, hey, from September to
Okay.
October, we need to look at
this
it
is
again.
where I was arguing with Mr. Prezant. We need to look at this quarterly, I think, for the first 2 quarters.
Yep.
Because our numbers are gonna be iffy when we first do it. So look at it at the end of the first quarter, which is just, September, October, November? No. The first quarter ends in September. That's too close. So look at it in December.
Mhm.
And then probably finalize it in January if we see changes.
Mhm.
I haven't got a problem with changing budget 2 times a year. I don't have a problem with that.
There's not. It
But-
allows us. I mean, that's a budget is just that.
It's a guideline.
Right.
But if I hear that one more time out of those 2, my partners in crime's mouth, I'm gonna hurt somebody. It's a guideline, but if it wasn't important, the county wouldn't withhold our funds if we go over budget.
Yes.
If it's not important, they wouldn't pull that on us. So I'm sick of hearing that it's a guideline. Yes, it's a projection, but we have to do a working budget every quarter for the last 2 quarters.
But we shouldn't until the end of the first quarter. What we need to do is really start. That becomes more of a finalized number.
Exactly.
Because we have other numbers
If
coming
you
in.
go through and you redo it in December, you know, the midpoint.
Yeah, but I call it adjustments.
Yeah. But if you do your adjustment in December, you can finalize it in the 3rd quarter, and then we shouldn't have to touch it again. Unless we have a bomb go off and the building fall over,
Well,
or some great stupid thing that, you know, we can't afford. But my goal is to have it done by the 1st quarter of the year,
Yeah.
and then not have to touch it again, and not have to run around like chickens with our head cut off and wondering, oh my God, do we have contingency money to cover this? You
Well,
know?
we should be able, if we wait until the first quarter to really lock in our numbers.
To lock it in.
We should have the numbers from county then, so we really gonna have some pretty strong numbers then.
Even if we don't submit the changes that we do in December,
Right.
even if we don't submit those, do it, get it on paper, then when we get to the end of the first quarter of the year, we can look at those numbers and add what the actual final numbers are, and do it then, do one.
But us trying to finalize numbers prior to that, we're getting what we got here, we're getting information that's not current.
And obviously not correct.
What really bothered me though, is that if this money is out there, then where is it? But I love numbers, but I also like to be able to have tangibles.
That's me, I wanna see it and I wanna touch it.
So where is it at? So if it was here, so it's not an A or B?
Well, we took 100,000 and we transferred it too.
Yeah,
So that's probably why that number isn't in our spending right now, the 772, you're gonna see.
because
it
that
in
wasn't
the-
until March, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
when
we
that
finally
fin-
took it
when
in
they
our
finally
March.
took it, so it's been in
So
limbo
many
whatever.
trips.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so what we could probably do to verify this number is go back to this month, pull your bank statements, pull your PBQs.
Yeah, this balance sheet is all Andy. All these reports is Andy.
Yeah,
So he pulls our bank statement, when you see
the bank statements, the
bank
PBQs,
statement, that is from the bank statement.
And the
our
county
PBQ
reports.
is what's sitting, and
and
then the county reports is that one, and which
so
is for the
we
county
should be
reports.
able to take those, run a total tape on it, cause I'm old, run a total tape on them and have it balanced this. That would be a proof.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the county records, the bank statements, and, the PBQ report.
And the difference would be the tangible, right, that what was
Right.
out there.
Right. Well, it's not gonna be a difference, it'll be a positive,
Yeah, right.
but, yeah. We could do that, that would be proof to us.
Well, I think we have to, I mean, we have to, if we're
Okay,
going,
we're gonna bully people, okay?
yeah. But we just need to get these numbers though, I mean, we need to see the real numbers
Yeah.
of where we're at.
Yep.
I mean,
And it's okay to like start a budget like, was done with that 350, but come July when we actually
We
got
should
the
have
actual
adjusted
number,
it.
that
Yeah.
should have been adjusted.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh no, I got
Well-
$191,000.
But that's okay, because.
But we
I
can
mean,
do it now.
I really needed to do this research, because we would have adjusted things in a certain way. One we really need to kind of adjust is because I went into county and corrected those funds.
Yes.
Um,
Did they actually do it already?
They got them done.
Okay.
So, the simple ones that we can adjust now, because I think we should send it to county before they say, hey, you guys are off, right? Let me see, where is our budget?
I don't know, I got so many papers in front of me.
Oh, where's the budget out of this
Here.
thing? Thank you. Okay, so for one, our workers' comp is off, all right? We already knew that. I don't know how that number got calculated in there, but we already know that our workers' comp is off, because I think when we totaled it was like 69
Yeah,
or something when we looked, so we need to fix that below.
okay,
Along with, we actually got that difference, you always pay a difference or whatever.
yeah,
It was like 4,000 something, so we're gonna have to fix that workers' comp in itself, to at least to what we know we spent,
right,
along with that 4,000, and I'll get you the actual number along with that. The other one would be, my major of importance is gonna be this grant program, where we need to fix this.
that's the 80,000.
That's a huge one.
have to
right
be
there.
fixed.
So we're gonna have to add that here, because it's not, let me see. Current services.
We've only done half the equation, we've already put the expense in, but.
Yeah.
So it could be, let's see, miscellaneous revenue, institution, we need to do something either in a miscellaneous revenue,
I think that's where it should go.
okay?
At least that'll
So-
help us identify it too.
Yeah,
Where did Andy put it? Andy put it in here. Let's see.
I saw it.
there was
Mm,
something
first
else we just talked about, we were gonna adjust
Grant
to.
revenue. He did it in, he did it on its own, under miscellaneous.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, so it's coming out of miscellaneous, put it in.
No, he actually separated, he didn't
Oh,
actually.
did he?
Yeah, there's a miscellaneous revenue there on its own, and a grant revenue on its own. I don't think he wants.
Can we
to
add a
use this.
grant revenue?
Yeah, probably. So this one, he has it as 5833. 5833, and I'm gonna go ahead and do it under here because it looks like he put miscellaneous revenue under this area,
Okay,
under a 772 or whatever, so I'm gonna do 5833, it looks like that's how he quoted it, put it in that QuickBooks. We're gonna add 80,000, and then he turns around. Well, easy, we need to take it out of the equipment. Here's our equipment,
I don't know.
right here, new equipment, we need to do it here.
Yeah, cause it was new when we got it, it's not
Yeah.
new
Equipment
anymore.
on that 8,300.
Okay.
So we need to increase it wherever our 50 is
80,000.
with the 80,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would solve,
That one.
where's my zero months, that would solve this one, okay?
Okay, and there was
Here's our
one more.
hologram. So our niche additions, which was in 7,000, the
Okay.
expense fund, I had them take it out of 8,000, which is here, building and
Right.
improvements, okay? So we need to increase at 50, we need to add that 22, because the other half came out of last year's fiscal year, I can't change that now. So the plus 22, 595, is that 595?
Yes.
Alright, so now we have to put it in here. We're gonna take it out of here. We also have to put it. No, we don't have to put it on the
No,
side at all.
it's just
the
coming off.
expense. Okay, so that will solve that one, but we do need to fix that one. The two lawnmower equipment. We also need to add it to here.
To equipment.
26648 32. And again, so we need to increase that number. We don't change the revenue because it was an expense.
It was, yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to adjust this budget.
But at least with the county, because as far as the county knows, that's what these numbers are fixed, so they're gonna be negatives
Yes.
on our end.
And
So-
it has been showing up as negative.
Yes. Well, and actually it was it was in the salary part, which
Yeah.
was the worst one, so that's
Yeah.
why I wanted to get it out of there. Now, what did you say, when county sees what? When we're off on this number, or where,
If we're off, if we're within $20 of being over on an expense, they will freeze over our budget.
so
They
then
will-
we're off right now?
We're off right now, so we're
Okay.
gonna have to adjust this stuff.
So if nothing else, just these simple ones right now?
We might as well do it all at one time.
Okay, so how long do we usually, do they let us know, hey, you're off on this number, or?
No, they wait till the last damn minute. We were,
So I just need to call her and tell her, hey, we're working on
we're
adjusting
working on
this
a
budget.
budget
We know that
adjustment.
these numbers are
Yeah.
off, but we know why they're off.
And if we could get them in April and they can post them in May, then we're 30 days ahead of schedule. Because when we got notified 3 years ago, it was 2 weeks before the end of the year. And we were in a panic. We had like three emergency audit meetings, and then they had a board meeting, and then all of a sudden, Lori, is it Lori over there? I can't remember who it was that called us. She goes, quit worrying, you got $130,000 in contingency. And we went, what's contingency? We didn't even know what that was.
Okay.
And so she did the paperwork for us, sent it over here, the guy signed it off, it went back, they moved that 130,000 over in there, and they went ahead and did our payroll. Cause they literally were freezing our payroll,
Yeah.
because that was the last thing that was going out at the end of the year. So if we could get this done in April, and get these yahoos to approve it and send it over in May, that would give them 60 days before the end of the year.
Let me ask something. Okay, so this is, 773, I remind myself sometimes what it is too, I did the same thing.
One of my top questions we're gonna get from the board on this is gonna be, this is gonna
Shake things up a little
We're
bit?
gonna spend 3 hours with one board member.
That's okay, we need to get this right. I mean, we all need to understand it, we need to, we need to be able
Surprised you
to.
guys didn't hear me yelling at him. out
Okay,
there.
so 773 is our endowment reserve, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So our endowment reserve, what out of this can we really touch?
just the interest.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just the interest.
Now, we can move some of the endowment money to invest,
Okay, can't touch it, I don't wanna know about that. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
but it's
So
a pain in the
interest.
butt to do it.
Interest, don't wanna know about, okay. 807. 807 is our expansion. To me, I can't touch that.
Thank you,
That's my number, I don't ever plan on that.
because it's
okay?
coming at us quickly.
I don't ever plan for that, alright? So, explain to me, 75 plus your 63, right? What is that, 100, I don't even know.
75, 63,
Yeah,
135,000 rounded up,
okay, that I can't touch,
okay?
take that out of that. Right? Kinda wanna show where I'm locked up and not understanding.
Okay, well, and I understand where you're coming from here because
So, 1.5,
the two other members of the audit committee meeting do this every month. We've got lots of money. Look at all 5 accounts and then just deduct out the
and
expenses.
this is what?
But there's
and
2
reserve.
accounts we can't touch.
Mhm.
So, alright, so that leaves me at 100,
A million,
1,506,000, wow, I keep saying that. Okay, 1,506,000, right?
right?
There's also $80,000. It's not mine, right? Okay? Now you guys tell me, I can't use
That you can't use?
no,
That's what you can use.
that's my budget.
Right.
That's your budget.
That's what you can use. Yeah.
However,
But my expenses and everything fall well over that. Because our number that we created a budget for was based on that, but that's really my number. So I'm set up for failure from the beginning.
you can't count this.
That's what I'm saying.
That's your budget.
But I can't count this, so that takes me 191,000 out of it too, which leaves me only
Which is
1,235,000.
why we should have only left 100,000 in there.
But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my contingency, I don't plan to use. That's my locked up number, like this one and like this one. So if that's the case, then that's my actual budget, but you guys have set up my expenses higher than what you're saying I can actually use. Because you're taking this number, saying that that's my revenue, that's where,
Wait, wait,
you go, that's where I'm
But
getting
your
confused.
expenses and your revenue have to match. That's it, okay.
Totally understand.
They have to match. So if your revenue's not this, then yes, we do need to adjust your expenses.
Yeah, no, I'm saying my revenue is not this because you guys are telling me I can't
You
spend
can't
that,
use
which I
those.
totally
So
get.
that becomes
I
your real
understand.
number.
Exactly.
Exactly, so that's why I'm set up for failure from the beginning, because we're basing our expenses
Well,
off of this
And
number.
you've got 3 accounts up here that you can't touch.
That's what I'm
And it
saying,
should not be on here.
That's
But
what I'm saying.
nobody listens to Linda,
that's what I'm saying, so here's my number,
They can be on there, but they
but
need,
it can't
Separate.
be.
but it have to be, when it comes down here, it has to
It,
show this
it
number.
has to match, yeah.
yeah, that's why it's,
And I
these
cannot
here
get that through to
these
these
here
guys.
need to be on a whole different budget.
They need to be on a separate page. I cannot get through to these guys that, yes, you've got plenty of money in there, but you got 3 accounts you can't
Yeah,
touch.
well, those, yeah,
And they don't seem to
But they're
get that.
included in the budget.
They're
And that's
included in the
what throws
budget.
this whole
That's
thing
what
off.
throws the budget off, that's what
Why,
throws the
why do
numbers
you
off.
think that I only look at the expenses? Because
So then we're
I don't
like,
understand where they're coming from on that.
you're like, hey,
It's
well, we're gonna have to
bad,
tap
but-
into the contingency fund. Well, that's because you guys have set up the
Yes.
expense to tap into the
Yeah.
Exactly.
contingency fund.
Yeah, we.
Because you got those 3 accounts in there that shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
You've
You
got your
can't do
work,
that.
you've got your working capital, you've got your, interest that's coming in, and you've got, what's the third one? I'm blank. You have 3 things coming in that your business expense, your everyday business expense needs to come out of, because those 3 up there, you can't touch them.
And that's why I kinda like, I get set up for failure from the beginning.
Yeah, well, especially if we're using this number to
Mhm.
calculate expenses, or,
Exactly,
then that sets the whole thing.
Well, and that's why
It's gonna
all these
tumble wrong.
expenses
and that's what we do,
and
and
come off because it got based off of this number, but yet my revenue, this doesn't show up as a positive
Yeah,
because it can't show up, because actually in my profit and loss, I don't think it's in there.
yeah, I mean, it's the truth.
And at the end, I believe he only adds the interest. I don't believe he adds the actual 75 like endowment and stuff. I
No.
believe he only adds the interest.
Yes.
So that number's not in our profit and loss.
exactly.
Just like this 80,000, or just like the contingency one is in there. But that's a huge number.
Yeah.
Said, I sat quiet for a while, because I
Well, you're in
really wanted to
it now,
understand.
so you've been
Yeah.
in long enough, you've seen it work now. What we should be doing on our budget is we can use those numbers, but down here, our expenses, everything needs to be tied to this number.
Well, you have to show those figures because the county's got a
Right,
requirement
I
to
mean,
show those figures. But we have to do our budget, say, from here down.
Mhm.
We can't include this top part from here down. So it has to be set up a little differently. And I'm sure if we went back and looked at that thing from Bakersfield,
Yeah.
Kern, we will see how they did.
Yeah, because, I can see where, so this new budget time, when we're doing this, we need to be utilizing this number to set expenses, and then we're starting to do a comparison to this.
But hold this thought, think of who did this,
But that's
who set
okay.
this up.
Yeah, and that's okay.
It's all right.
I mean, needed to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Needed
You
to
know.
start somewhere. And so now we just improve on it.
But, yeah, and if we did like took from here down, we would be good.
Well, not that, because that's all, you mean for, like, to
Well,
me, it's this one.
Yeah,
It's this one,
That
that's where we need to take off.
Yeah.
Right.
So almost
or
like,
put it at the bottom
this
as a
one
separate
under-
entity.
see this one right there? It's
Yeah.
almost like we need to cut it off there. Again, that concrete base is something that,
Exactly.
I'll have to talk to the accountant exactly what's the best way, because that we know
Yeah.
it is a budget item, but it's not a good spendable revenue. It's an in and out.
So what might be
It's
good for
another wash system.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what should be good to make it visible to everybody is we can show those numbers come up, and then we take that number off, and then we put a number that it balances the budget, and we
That
order
would
the budget, so.
create three meaning, we could do like an
Three
endowment
sections.
one.
Yeah,
Right.
We could do an endowment one that shows that and here where our interest is,
Right,
and the expense or not expense would be that interest that comes out, because we know that goes over to
that'd be
something
easier
Yeah.
which
for
would be-
clarity.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
then the endowment would remain whatever that endowment is supposed to stay in there. Same thing with the 807, and this could be for the 5-year strategic plan, what we're planning on spending in that year in growth. That could be the expense for that year. Hey, we need to invest $10,000 into blueprints this year, so $10,000 needs to come out of this one for this year in budget, for the expansion fund, per se. Does that make sense? Because we need to create it. So whatever future things we already kind of have in place in mind, we need to estimate, that would be the expense for this year that we plan on using out of the expansion.
and that's part of the problem. We're not doing a budget with any estimates.
Yeah.
We're doing hardline numbers where we're saying this has to be this way, period, end of conversation. you
Yeah.
know?
And then and also what is the 817 unreserved? I don't know what that one is specifically, 817, endowment and reserve, what is that?
I have no clue. It's something that Vicki Gilson set up.
There's
Unreserved.
endowment reserved, right?
And endowment
And that's where we get
unreserved.
the interest from that, right? Endowment unreserved, we don't know what that means
I don't have a clue.
Is
But
where
my
we need to probably
description-
come up with the descriptions.
Yeah, well, the description
And
says, you know.
it's a possibility, they should just be added together.
Really? Is that what it is?
It's a possibility, I would,
Okay.
don't, you might, if you call Rob, ask him that,
Okay.
you know?
Alright, so same thing,
And then, and you're gonna try to get involved in some of these conversations? Okay.
yeah,
It
and
might
actually,
be
we
nice
were
for
trying
both
to,
of you, that way you can kind of bounce things back and forth a little bit. and
Yeah,
you gotta come
and
up
I
with
was, we
something.
were trying to set it up and it just didn't work out.
You know, I keep having emergency doctor visits, so.
So, but when I come back from this conference, and the other thing, I have the CalPERS training, CalPERS is going up this year,
Yeah, I know.
Of course it will.
so I'll know more.
They said that at that Zoom meeting, you know
Yeah.
why it's going up, did you hear why it's going up?
Mm.
They made bad investments.
Oh, I think I
Last
seen
year.
something at the, I seen
Yeah,
something
they
before on
made
that.
bad investments, they lost their rears.
Yeah.
So we have to
And
pay-
so they're billing every employee 10%, every employer 10% more this year.
Well, it's so far on the red on those anyway.
Remember when they came 2 years ago and wanted to borrow money from us because we were flush with money? Remember when that lady came here? Were you on the board?
Yes, I do remember that.
She came and they were trying to borrow $445,000 from us. Now, everybody, Steve goes, oh wow, they're asking to borrow money from us. Do you not think maybe there's a problem?
Yeah.
You know, and that was 4 years ago that happened. I don't trust people from the government that wanna borrow money from little entities like this.
So we do, again, we were planning on getting together, because I kind of wanted to go over this with her, I'm glad we did it all together here. But it is something that, again, if I get a chance to get Danny to meet, we'll drive up there,
Okay,
kind of
that's fine.
see what he did, on his smaller layout, the one with Kern. We'll get with Andy, see what works for us to be able to adjust with him, and we'll let him have a call with the county too. Everything's all over the place.
That's all right.
Here's how the.
I go home and I put them all in my book in the right order, so. But I think I'm gonna have to change books because it's good, so I can't carry it, it's too heavy.
Take this one. I'm over there.
Oh,
You wanna take this
thank
other
you.
one? 'Cause
Yeah,
then
let
we
me
just
read
print
them.
again.
I'll read it.
I'm gonna give you this one too, 'cause I think they explained a little bit. Oh, the other thing we need to come up with is a salary, range. So we have to have this for CalPERS. We don't have one.
A salary range for everybody?
I thought you set one up per job.
I did based on, employees, yes, based on like groundsman 1, groundsman 2.
Okay.
Based on
So
here,
we can't use that?
but we need a scale. They want us to have a layout
But
scale.
your scale was like 18 to 21 or something, right? For
Yeah, they want a scale, like almost a 10-row.
And every increase scale, I mean,
And so when I talked to Madeira and how they did theirs, cause, they had an audit from CalPERS and they didn't have one, and they had to create
yeah.
this scale. And actually their scale wasn't what, their old scale wasn't what CalPERS wanted. and
And
stuff.
let me tell you, now that you're going to their meetings, expect an audit.
Yeah, so, what they did is
try to
they're,
get more money from us.
when I asked them, I said, so did you go off of a range of years of service? They said no. And he said, no, I guess you can't go off of years of service.
No, it's just
Based on the
gotta be
scale.
Just,
Just kind of, experience, just kind of, I mean, cause you could start somebody in they did it as A, B, C, D, and E. So he goes, you can start somebody at E, you know.
does
and
this
somebody
include
at A.
everybody employed here or just the groundsmen?
No, everybody.
So you're gonna have to start with your lowest scale and go to your highest scale and
And
then do
that's
one
what-
more.
Yep, and that's for whatever, and they have it, I think there's like 10 ranges, like within the groundsman, they had 10 different pay rates. And every one was a 2.5 difference, from the lowest to the highest, 2.5 difference. You had to keep raising it up. When you get there, so you can see.
That's their way of,
They're looking at how they can get more money.
what it is, they're not taxing us. Good
No.
news, but they're going to get us in every other angle.
In every other angle. So they're projecting what our pay raise is gonna be next year, and that's gonna be our new.
Projection, what if we don't give it to them? What if we say,
Will they penalize us? Can they penalize us? Okay, they can penalize us, cause what they're doing,
Here's Madeira. So Madeira, they have, for instance, part-time groundsman.
crap,
They have office assistant, they have groundskeeper 2, ongoing, right? And so they start at step A to all the way to step R. And each one, the difference is just a 2.5. So they can bring in somebody, an office assistant, and actually start them here, or they can bring an office assistant. and actually
depending
start
on
them here.
experience, yes.
Right. And so, you know, for this, for whatever that salary schedule, for that year, they can cap at that, and that year.
Okay, and I'm gonna tell you what they're doing. This is this year, okay? When they set our fees or the schedule we have to pay, they're looking at us already on 2 years, 2 steps down the road, and that's how they're gonna make more money.
Right.
Over and above the 10%, they're gonna charge you more. They're gonna project you more, they're gonna go 5% more, because 2.5, they'll go 5% more, and so your rates are gonna jump 15% the first year.
So we need to
So
have
we
one
gotta do
on
that
file
for every single person,
for every
For
single
every position.
every position.
And you have the same positions at you don't have part-time. Okay, you got office assistant, you don't have office assistant, you got groundskeeper.
2. I have a groundskeeper 1, a groundskeeper 2. Ones that are based on whoever can dig a grave, who can dig a grave, and the ones who can't dig a grave.
Mhm.
So the ones who can dig a grave and the ones
We're
who can't.
busy. Where do you think I am?
So that has to, how soon you gotta turn that in?
Hello?
You need to work on it.
Yes,
I need to get it ready before they actually question me on it.
9 o'clock.
Because we don't have.
What
it.
time is it?
Jennifer, like I said, we have a real basic one.
No, we have a lot of things we're going over. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Orange County does about the same thing.
If your was here, you wouldn't have questions.
Yeah.
Orange County did about the same thing. Here's your groundskeeper, your lead worker, another groundskeeper position, which is kind of like your 1 and 2. Actually, they already set it up for the next 3 years.
Yeah, sure have.
That's good, I like this one, I like this one.
Yeah.
What a pain in the butt. Well, Claire, all you can do is go with the current.
Yeah.
This is what I would do. Your groundskeeper 2, I would average their hourly wage, and that would be my starting one. Then go 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. And then do the same thing with the girls, average their rate.
I just gotta know when I get to the end, let's say this number right here cannot exceed what we have budgeted. That's the thing. And so let's say, cause if we're saying that this is the max, right? This is the
Yeah.
max. I'm gonna have to make sure that this column, if everybody reached that max, let's say, that it still falls within our budget.
Okay,
And how many did they do? Let me see. They also have 12.
but remember, we're under budget, so you should be okay.
They have a lot more. This one only has 12.
I would do 12.
Yeah, I don't think I need more.
Yeah.
And they did it as a 2.5. We don't really have to do it that high
They're
as the
cool.
next range
But
or whatever.
2.5 is a good number.
It's fair, yeah.
It's fair, but that's what they're gonna do, they're gonna look at, this is the
Yeah.
current,
They're
and
gonna-
we're gonna charge you 10% more to make up for our stupidity and our losses, and then they're gonna go 2 more, so they're gonna add 5% more to it, so you're gonna be paying 15% more next year.
At least 12 and a half for sure.
At least,
Yeah.
I love the government.
The other thing we're gonna have to, and actually our auditor puts it in, I don't know why we haven't had it, is in our salary, in our wages. The one thing I think I mentioned before is that we've never calculated the PTO time accrual, okay?
Well, this is the first year we've had PTO.
We've had vacation, and that never got accounted for.
It didn't?
In budget. It did in your audit,
Oh, yeah, I did.
but we've never put it into our budget, which throws everything off. So,
So we're gonna have to add the PTO.
absolutely, because it will change every month based on whoever uses it. But
Yeah.
what you gotta figure out is whatever, every month, at the end, when we do, when I do my payroll, I get a report that says how much that they have in PTO accrued, right? So I know, all right, if that person was to leave today, what would it cost me
What
to
would I
write
have to
them an
pay out?
additional check?
Yeah,
Right, and so every month, I'll be able to add it into here, into the budget, really close, because remember when our payroll ends, sometimes we still got 3 days, that
Yeah.
might fall into the next
Yeah.
month, but it'll get close, you know, we'll get
So
pretty close.
PTO is what, 0.9 or what is it, per?
It depends on what, like well, I'm not gonna say specifically, I wanna say 0.05 or 0.5, whatever, based on their hours of work. And before, you guys were actually just comping them, every month, 8 hours. 8 hours sick, 8 hours vacation, 8
and
hours
this
sick.
is what the argument was.
And they could've worked 10 hours that whole month,
Yeah.
and they were
They
still
were-
getting comped for 8
And
hours.
they were averaging payrolls, and
Yeah,
they had been averaging payrolls forever, and then all of a sudden, somebody on the board said, you can't average payroll,
Yeah, I
and we
remember
went
the
back and we
conversation,
pulled
yeah.
everything, they've been averaging payrolls for 20 years,
Yeah,
you know,
People were getting, everybody was getting 16 hours a month.
a month.
the problem was
Which
getting
adds
plus
up.
and minus.
Yeah. And so, now that their PTO, they only get 3 days sick max, that's government issued or whatever. So that one's separate than their PTO.
Is it used or accrued on that?
Sick is not, sick is just either you use it or you lose it by the time of the year. PTO is accrued, but caps at about a year and a half of accrual. And then once it caps at a certain number or whatever, it won't add more, so they
Right.
gotta use it.
But you won't have anybody not use it.
No.
Is it use it or cash out? I mean, can you?
They can cash out, so in December, so it doesn't get accrued too high, in December, they're able to cash out up to half. I don't want them to cash out the whole thing, because then they get desperate and they wanna cash it out, and then they got nothing left.
Right.
So they can cash out up to half. This way it helps us not have to build that PTO really high,
Yeah.
right? So they're able to cash out half of their PTO. But the problem is that we need to take into account if everybody was, we always gotta base it off of, like, if things were to end today, what would we have to pay
Right.
out? That's how I figure my numbers.
Yeah.
So that's why that PTO number has to be included in here.
Yeah.
Because that would be above what our wages are.
When we were working on budget last year, had you already gotten PTO approved?
And I had kind of mentioned it, but I think it all just kind of got figured in. It's like, well, they'll use it, but we can't really do it in
One
that way.
person trying to leave and the other person getting phone calls and,
Yeah.
and Claire and I are sitting here by ourselves and.
And again, I was still trying to figure out exactly how you guys were coming up with the numbers and why and whatever. And so it's taking me a little bit to understand what I know we need and what we spend versus
It's
how
really
it's gonna be
obvious that
reported.
he's using last year's numbers and things have increased so much, you can't use a starting point from last year's
And if
numbers.
that's how he got it, that's what's confusing, you know, but
But I don't ever remember him saying that, but then again, I don't.
But how could he have the numbers?
Yeah,
He would have to
he
use
would
some
have to
form
get
of
something
number.
from, cause he said he gets numbers from Rob.
Yeah, so
So
it
it has to be the
could have been
previous
a
years.
well-educated number,
Yes.
but at the same time, it's only a number, you know? It's not a real number.
Because the only thing I got involved in on budgeting the income was the sales, the property tax. Because I had just seen on TV that morning that the property tax, oh, by the way, did you see the thing the county put out about, we may not get as much property tax in April as we got in December?
how are you getting those messages?
I get messages from the county all the time.
I don't get
God
those.
only knows.
No, that's great, they don't.
I can go back and I can pull up the HTTP number for you, address for you, or the IP address for you and give them to you, so maybe you could sign up
Yeah,
for it.
maybe it's a link or something.
Anyway, but, I got a thing from the county that because of all the flooding, that they are going to,
Oh.
you can apply to waive your property taxes in April. And
So it's
so,
why we won't get.
Yeah,
it.
but they'll claim that on a federal grant or something coming in, that the county will get that money.
right, but I sent this flyer to Steve and I said, is that gonna affect us? He goes, well, have you had any flooding in Tulare? Do we-
Yes.
Do we get property tax out of Tipton too? They bury here, right?
Yes, so
Something-
that,
Tipton
so,
has their own little cemetery, I mean, not as big, but yeah.
But we should get some of it, you would think,
Yeah,
so,
but it shouldn't have too much effect on us because of that, though.
because you know every Tom, Dick, and Harry is gonna apply for that, even if they had water go this
Well,
far
sure,
in the
why not?
garage, you know?
What's worse can happen, you don't get it, you know? I don't think it'll affect us too bad, Bill.
But see, I had seen that property taxes going up like, what was it, 5.2% or some ungodly thing like that. So I figured we'd get 105 to 115,000 instead of the 95 to 96,000. And we got 106. And we've still got another 15,000 out there for the late pays from December. We should be getting that, you should be getting that sometime this month.
We'll see how much you get on that, that'd be interesting.
So, but I'm just curious if that's gonna affect us, you know, with our how we project our property tax. Because of the number of new houses that they're building here.
I know, you would think that would offset it.
And yet, nobody can get a home loan. That's the saddest thing I've ever seen. And all this crap with the
All
bank
right, so
statements.
how we doing here? We got,
Okay,
future agenda item request?
Oh, that's if anybody, I kind of put that in there, just if there's anything that we need to talk about or add to the agenda or suggestions or something.
well, you can either do this as a light item in the agenda or in your manager's report. Talk about that we want to alter our audit forms.
Or budget forms.
Let's do it.
And then, yeah, cause then we can, with a new CPA, we can probably get some, I could probably pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah, and he's young, he's got fresh new ideas.
Yeah.
And the new CPA, he's the one who's gonna, he does our final, right?
Mhm.
But we're still using the same one
Yep.
for our.
Right, to
Yeah.
finish last year's, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then I
But this one
referred
is
him to
worth-
San
this one
Francisco,
is
so
worth-
he's
he's
got a new
literally-
job up there,
Oh, really?
yeah.
So now, so Rob, when he finishes it, then you're not gonna have him going forward?
Right, he's done. So this new cemetery district CPA, which is great, cause that's what they're, I mean,
That's
his
all they
business
do.
is cemetery district.
That's his
Which would be
business
great.
that he started, that is just all he
That
does.
should be helpful, and he can definitely, give some insight if we're.
Because what we've had in the past, whether it be M Green or Rob down there, they all have they all do income tax, they do every kind of accounting there is.
Yeah,
You know, and so, it gets, and then when COVID hit, and then, were you on the board when that debacle hit? Where, someone accused him of manipulating our audit and there was money missing?
no, I don't remember.
I don't think you were here.
I don't remember that one.
He was flabbergasted because he was presenting the audit to us, I think it was his second year. He sat right here and his bookkeeper was with him, the gal that did all the work on it, and then he just finalized it. When that hit, when those people made the accusation that there was funds missing and that the auditor had covered it up, he stood up and he was just as red as your shirt, and then she said, "Sit down, I got this."
Yeah.
And she went off on them, oh my God.
Yeah, I missed that fiasco.
Oh, it was, I think it was, he was still on the board.
Mm.
She's gotten awfully quiet.
So,
Oh,
yeah, cause then this way we can also, know what the other, a lot of accountants, the hardest part of understanding is that there's money, and we have an accounts that we can't use and touch, and I explained that to Andy, I said, this is in our budget, and that's where he was like,
Then if you
he
can't
knew
touch
what
it,
they
it
had
shouldn't be in there.
endowment, and he's like, wait, so you can't touch it? I said, no, I was
Only
like,
the
we can't
interest.
touch it at all, I said, only the interest, and so that's where he's like, well, then hold on a second, and
See,
that didn't make
And that's where we
sense.
got in trouble 4 or 5 years ago. We took money out of endowment, which we could do to invest. And that's when we invested in Morgan Stanley, and at one point, we were losing $6,000 a month.
Yeah.
We had to pay that back.
Well, this stifle one, it seems like a lot of cemeteries use that one lady that came
That
there.
came in.
Yeah.
A lot of people use her,
Yeah.
a lot. In fact, I think Kern, I seen it on Kern, I seen it on Orange County, they also have
Yeah.
a stifle. So I don't know how they work their system, but we'll be seeing them
I know we
again
use them
this week.
also.
I'm sure she's gonna be out there.
Yeah.
But I might wanna look into her again.
And Steve has talked to her several times, and he brought up at an audit meeting not too long ago that maybe we need to have her come and talk to us again, see what the rates are, because our rates with the county suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah, there's not
And
much there.
yet, the problem of being our own bank is pulling everything out like Visalia did. We're not as big as Visalia, we can't function like Visalia does, you know, so that was a little dangerous, so. Alright, are we done?
I think so. We got
Now we're
that.
all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
District manager report, you probably included that pretty much.
That was probably, yeah,
All right.
that's all about it.
All right, so let's adjourn at 10:46.
Do you wanna do minutes on this one?
Yeah, I'll do,
Do you wanna just kinda review video or whatever?
yeah,
Are you okay with
I'll
that?
look at it, and I'll do it that way. I'm already secretary for the AMVets. Go in the bathroom because we're going to, no,
In the ring?
yes,
I gotta hit the president right now.
Bloody Mary time,
What's that?
Bloody Mary time.
No, there you go.
I'll give the helpers, if it needs me, I probably can't reach you until 3, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay,